Hello, I'm Enzo, and how hard is it to beat Borderlands 4 with only legendaries? Since I assume most of you have seen my other videos, you probably expected this one. I mean, it was going to happen eventually. I'm also guessing that you played Borderlands 4, so you know most of what's happening. I'll explain a tiny bit of the story as we go along, but not too much detail. My other Borderlands 4 video is exactly like that. In this game, we get straight to the action, which is one of my favorite parts. Game starts us out with a pistol. Obviously, I can't use it because it's white rarity. So you're probably wondering, when do I get my first legendary? Well, technically, I can get it right now if I really wanted to. If you saw in my inventory for a second, I have one reward available. But I wanted to see how this would go without using the pre-order bonus. And let me just say, not extremely well. I get pretty much two-shot by any of the enemies. This is because, naturally, I'm playing on the hard difficulty. I want to add as much challenge as possible to this run. Oh yeah, I might as well explain the rules. I'll be playing on the hardest difficulty, which is, well, hard. I'm only allowed to use legendary gear in all equipment slots. Naturally, that includes like enhancements, class mods, everything can only be legendary. I'll get to farming rules a tiny bit later on. But for now, I actually can't use anything besides my fists to deal with enemies. Now, in theory, RJ can take out all of these enemies, and he's actually pretty effective, but this is a Borderlands game. Where's the fun in letting an NPC take all of your kills? The first troubling thing is the fact I didn't actually get any healing from any of the containers I opened. That's a major problem because, I'm gonna get one shot by the next enemy that I face. One of my favorite features that was introduced in Borderlands 3 is the fact that NPCs can actually revive you. Well, most of the time at least. It's absolutely tragic that RJ just decides to ignore me there, and that's when I remember to actually activate the overlay I made for this. This overlay will be tracking how many legendaries I've collected, and as you can see, farms and deaths. Considering how unplayable the game is for me right now, I decided to use my reward. This is a pre-order bonus for the game, and it gives you a bunch of legendaries. There's one level 50, two level 30s, and, most important of all, one level 1 legendary. This is what I'll be using until I get my first proper farmed legendary. Now, if I were actually being smart, I probably would have counted this as a legendary on the counter. I know that's going to annoy some people, but I decided that this is just going to be my starter weapon, and what I'm going to use on my way to the first farm. As you can see, it makes dealing with enemies far easier now that I don't actually have to run up to them. There was about 10 minutes of just running and dealing with some super simple enemies, but now it's time for the first boss, and the first major problem. I have found no healing anywhere so far. It makes a lot of sense because you're supposed to use your rep kit to heal. This isn't like the other Borderlands games where you can find lots of healing items in containers. And I knew I would just get one shot the second I started fighting the boss, so I had to prepare for that. This first boss is actually just a warden. You'll find a lot more of these guys later on, but man, I did not expect the fight to be this difficult. The main problem is when you kill an enemy and get a second wind, you don't actually restore much health. The game even says it's only 20%. The main reason it's so bad is because I just get one shot and die instantly again. You need to be at least 40% health to get Health Gate, which lets you take an additional hit before you die. Of course, I can't use a shield either because there's no legendary options just yet. So, yeah, there's my second death. I can't say I've ever had this much trouble with a starting boss before, but it makes a lot of sense given my circumstances. And the fact that Borderlands 4 is a very difficult game, well, when you limit yourself this much, it gets a whole lot easier if you know what you're doing and have good gear. Honestly though, the biggest problem in this fight isn't even the warden himself, it's actually the minions that he spawns. Just like any other boss fight in Borderlands, these minions are meant to be second wins, so that you can actually continue the fight if you ever get downed. The problem is, they all have guns, and they're more of an issue than anything else. because again, if I get hit by anything, I just go back into fight for your life. So instead of just having to dodge the warden's attacks, now I have to watch out for where these synths spawn because they can be an issue too. Thankfully though, they'll occasionally drop healing items. It's extremely rare, but getting even that one heal was a massive help in this fight. And with that, I managed to beat the first boss. Now, I will admit, because I wanted to get this video out relatively fast, I did not do any testing, but in theory, it should be possible to farm this first boss with like read only and then reloading the level. Obviously, you can't save and quit after you've already killed him. This boss is not meant to be farmed, but he could potentially drop a legendary. Although that's certainly a very interesting option, that's not what I'm going for. I'm going to be farming legendaries the way the game intended, so I'll have to get to the first actually farmable boss. Since I've defeated the first boss, I have also gotten a skill point. Now, this is the main reason I chose Amon for this run. I've actually played every other Vault Hunter at this point. First was Rafa, then Harlow, which is easily my favorite by the way, and Vex. But I chose Amon for this run because of one of his first skills. You see, I decided to go down the blue tree, which is extremely important. The blue tree has a super good skill that gives you health regeneration every time you take damage, stacking up to 20, which is kind of insane, especially for the early game where I have no other sources of healing or shields. I also unlocked my action skill, but I kind of forgot to equip that. The blue tree's action skill also gives you a shield, like a shield that you hold out in front of you, which is going to be another important source of defense. Another important thing to mention for now is specializations. You see, I didn't actually realize that every new game has this unlocked. I thought it was only the level 30 start, but oh well. Specialization is a lot like Bar in Borderlands 2, but way closer to Guardian rank in Borderlands 3. The only problem with this is that I can't actually turn it off. I have to live with the specialization points. So my plan for these is to actually invest everything into melee damage. It also gives a tiny bit of movement speed, so that is kind of nice. I will be using a tiny bit of melee to like finish off kills. I would still say that's valid because it's kind of like a natural response. Like, you don't want to reload your weapons or waste more bullets on an enemy, but you need to kill them somehow. Even though I'm putting points into the melee tree, I won't be using the actual perks it gives you. One of the perks in that tree is actually really good, I have to admit, but that would give me too much of an advantage for the early game. Speaking of the early game, you can pretty much see what I'm doing right here. I'm just exploring a little bit and killing as many enemies as I can see. These guys are great XP, I have to say. And the main reason I'm getting XP is obviously so I can level up and get more points into that healing skill. I swear, that skill carried me so hard through the early game. It is actually stupid how powerful it is. Amon's action skill also has an attack where if you press the action skill button again, in my case it's F, it releases like a cryo slash attack, which is pretty neat. And this can be changed with augments later on. Amon also has a passive. That's the skill in the middle there, where if you hold F, you create this firewall. I think it damages enemies that go through it and buffs your shield attacks, I believe. I don't think it does anything for normal gun attacks though. That's one of my biggest problems with Amon and why he's my least favorite Vault Hunter. First of all, he is centered all around melee, and melee is not my playstyle, and yeah, his passive is pretty much useless in my opinion. And overall, I think most of his skills kinda just suck. Like, that healing skill is easily one of his best. The one I'm going next increases your gun damage the more health you have, and then doubles that bonus when you're at full health. Unfortunately, I won't be able to use this for a long time because I'm not going to get a shield for quite a bit. But now, it's time to fight Splash Zone. This is the first actual boss, and more importantly, the first boss we can farm. The only problem is that he is a mission boss, which means we have to complete the mission first. And I didn't realize just how long it would be before I completed this mission, because you have to wait for all of Claptrap's dialogue and then Rush's dialogue at the end. So I did not expect that at all. I literally went back to the main menu because I thought it was okay to save and quit, but no, you actually need to get the mission down and outbound first before you can do this farm. I also got a bunch of SDU points, which is awesome. I can use these to upgrade my ammo and backpack capacity. You know the funny thing I did? I accidentally threw them all into bank instead of backpack. So yeah, there goes all of my SDU points. Thankfully, they're relatively easy to get, but still, that is tragic, losing your starter points because of a stupid mistake like that. Oh well, I guess it's time to walk back and go farm Splash Zone. By far, the best mechanic that Borderlands 4 introduces, well, besides the double jump, the gliding, and the grappling hook, those are all pretty awesome. They made it super easy to farm bosses and mini-bosses, which makes the game so much easier and better to play. All you have to do is kill the enemy that you want to farm. There's usually going to be a portal that teleports you back to the beginning of the farm, but in this case you can easily jump out of the arena to reach it. You pay a bit of money, which sucks early on because it's super expensive, but once you start selling all the gear from the boss you just killed, yeah, it pays itself off pretty fast. And yeah, this is the process for farming legendaries. As you can see though, I may have forgotten to actually increase the farm counter because I forgot. I had that thing in the first place. I went through so much effort to set all of these counters up just to forget they exist. Which also leads me to say, yes, the counter for legendaries, farms, and deaths will not be accurate. I definitely did not count everything exactly, so there's going to be some discrepancy by the end, but oh well, the numbers are going to be pretty high either way. But yeah, I kid you not, this is exactly what the gameplay is going to look like until I get an actual legendary. So I'll just cut to then. At last, I've finally gotten my first proper legendary. I also updated the farm counter. You know the only problem with this thing? Yeah, this gun is not a dedicated drop to Splash Zone. I happen to know all 3 of his drops because I like, well, at least one of them. But yeah, he's not supposed to drop this. This does happen sometimes where you'll get just a random legendary from a boss, even though it's not their dedicated one. But still, it's nice to have something besides the same gun I've been using for hours at this point. The Zipper is a pretty neat gun. It's super fun to use, and the damage is pretty decent, but you get all the damage when you hit an enemy in the back, which is usually a problem when you're playing single player like me. Still a very neat find, especially considering I've never used this gun before. I'll definitely say it again, but that is one of my favorite parts of these legendary only runs. Using guns and items that I would normally never touch, which is super cool. A while later, as you can see, I finally got my second legendary. This is the lead balloon. This is one of his dedicated drops. It's nice to get a better gun from him, but again, this is not what I was looking for. A couple of farms later, you might be able to see a slight problem here. I've only been getting lead balloons. Now, it took me a while before I actually figured this out, but he can only drop the lead balloon right now. I did not even take into account the fact he can't drop other stuff just yet. You see, in all Borderlands games, certain weapons and equipment are locked until higher levels. This game is a great example because enhancements and class mods are locked until way higher levels. But the same thing goes for certain types of equipment and stuff like that. Some manufacturers only unlock after a certain level. You know the best examples I have? Ripper grenades and Jacob's shields, or well, armor shields in general. Because guess what? Those are his 2 other drops, and I have not gotten any. I've literally only gotten lead balloons at this point. And again, it took a long time before I finally realized that's what's going on here, but I want to explain it now. After a total of 58 farms and 7 lead balloons, that's quite a bit, I finally realized that, yeah, he can't drop the other items until a certain level. That really sucks, but at the same time, it makes quite a bit of sense. And it also adds a very interesting twist to this run. You see, I just figured this run would be super easy if I could farm Splash Zone and get a legendary grenade and shield off the bat, but I can't do that. which means I need to change up my strategy quite a bit. More importantly, this means I'm going to need to find another legendary farm. It's going to be quite a while before I can do that, so I'm going to have to do a lot of the main mission to get there. Before that, I decided to do some more exploring because I know where one of the vault key pieces is. Since this is a Borderlands game, an important part of it is looting vaults. I'll need these vault key pieces from all around the map to actually open the 3 vaults. One is located in each of the 3 main areas. Well, technically there's 4 areas, but the one in the middle doesn't count. After doing some more side objectives, I got some more SDU points and I can finally increase my backpack size. That's a whole lot better. And while I'm here, I decided to check out all of the customization. All of the characters share most of the customizations, you know, all the styles are the same and everything like that, but I thought it would be cool to look at them anyways. Honestly though, my favorite part about customization in this game is the fact you don't have to worry about getting stupid like legendary skin drops taking up your loot pool. I still have zero idea why they didn't change that in Borderlands 3 or even Wonderlands. Like nobody likes that system, so why did they keep it for so long until now? Well, at least we don't have to deal with it in here. That's all that really matters. Another good thing to note, about half of this run was recorded before the big October patch, so that changed quite a bit of stuff in this game. You'll notice that very soon, but this is one of the Rift Champion world events. Now these are super awesome because they spawn mini bosses that you get to fight. The only problem is that my survivability is still horrible and I unfortunately died to these guys. It would have been sick if I could have gotten a legendary from them, but hey, I guess it added one to the counter in another way. Yeah, I really just don't have the survivability for events like this just yet. I swear, I tried 6 of these before I killed one, or something like that. I guess we'll see later on. Besides working towards the next legendary farm, one of the best reasons to actually work on the main missions is getting my vehicle, the Digi-Runner. This thing is pretty awesome because unlike the other Borderlands games, I can literally spawn my own vehicle anywhere, anytime. Well, you can spawn it in most places. It's mostly meant for the open world, not closed levels and caves and stuff like that. Still, this system is so much better than before because you can move around the map infinitely faster. It's pretty awesome. Thankfully, it's not super long before I can actually get to the next farmable boss. This is Horus. The main problem is that he is a warden type boss, which means he's flying. You see the issue with that? The lead balloon isn't exactly great at dealing with flying enemies, but at this point it's my highest damage weapon, so yeah, I kinda just have to deal with that. Over a lot of farming, I did learn his patterns and how to actually hit him with the unique like reverse arc projectiles of the lead balloon, but it's still not an easy fight, especially considering I can't heal on my own. I only get some health regeneration. Funnily enough, the starting gun is still pretty decent at this point. I say that in the context of all of my weapons currently freaking suck. The only decent thing about the Horus fight is once you break his shield, he actually goes back to walking on the ground, which is super nice. That makes the fight way easier than before. Also, that little invincibility phase he has in between shield and health, that's not in the farm fights, thankfully. That's only a story thing. I'm probably just gonna skip the rest of these. None of these early Rift Champion fights went well at all. They either melt me, I die to the other enemies in there, or I die to my own weapons with no revives. Yeah, this is going horribly. Thankfully, it only took me a few attempts to get my first legendary, and it just happens to be a pacemaker. This is awesome. It's not a crazy good rep kit, but that means I can finally use my own healing item, and it gives me some more passive health regeneration, which is incredibly helpful. The other augment I got on it, Heavy Hitter, that's not really good, especially considering I'm only using melee. Something like, you know, fire rate, reload speed. Well, I guess anything else at this point would have been better. Still, very nice to have some real healing for once. Another thing I wanted to note, this is before the update that completely nerfed it. Yeah, I just happened to get a perfect crit knife from this fight. Like, that is literally perfect in every sense. Damage amp, penetrator, and overflow. That's pretty insane. The main reason they nerfed it is because, obviously, critical hits on every single tick of damage for however long it is super overpowered. They changed it to a 30% chance for every single damage, which I think is fair enough. And in this run, if I don't go over a legendary, it's either something I've gotten before, or it's a copy of something I'm currently farming for, as you can see here. And I'm pretty sure, I don't remember all of Horse's drops, but I think I'm just getting extremely unlucky at this point, not getting another drop besides the pacemaker. Besides the extreme challenge that the Rift champions present, I actually want to clear them out because the bosses have a decent chance to drop a legendary. I say that, but I also feel like the boss drops are 1 in 20, which, yes, that's the generally agreed upon drop rate in Borderlands 4. 5% from bosses. 1 in 20. That is ridiculous. That's literally Borderlands the pre-sequel low drop rates. And to make things worse, the biggest problem with farming in this game is the fact that bosses have multiple dedicated drops. So let's say you're farming for a specific item from one boss. Well, you're always going to get several duplicates of everything else you don't want before you actually get what you're looking for. And that is what makes farming in this game so annoying, despite how easy it is. Seeing the footage now, I realized that I only did, like 9 farms of Horus, but he was extremely annoying to fight. That's the main problem. So I decided to go to another farm that I know is relatively close by. This is called a drill site. It's another type of farm that makes you fight a ton of enemies before you can actually kill the boss. And in some cases, there's actually multiple bosses, like this one. I think this is called like the Forge Freaks, and there are 3 separate bosses. So you would think that my chances of getting stuff would be a bit higher, but you'll see in a little bit, no, my luck is just horrible in this run. Even though I said earlier I would not be using the specialization like skills, I did decide to use them when I'm farming stuff because, man, these drill site farms especially are painful to deal with. Another thing I used to actually speed up the farm was my action skill. Instead of using the shield, I decided to use the attack that it gives you. And I have to say, this attack is extremely fun. It is way better than using the shield itself. So that's pretty cool. On top of that, I finally get one of the augments that I've been meaning to try for a while. This augment is super cool because it's literally like Athena's shield ricochet in the pre-sequel. Unfortunately though, I feel like the shield ricochet never does much damage at all. I think it's actually like the worst augment for him. I don't know. Again, Amon is not my favorite Vault Hunter. I don't think he's super powerful. Maybe with the right build and gear, but yeah, he's just not my style. Since I've had such horrible luck and I've been getting quite sick of farming up to this point, I decided to resort to the golden chest. Now, I didn't want to do this, especially because I don't want to waste my golden keys at a low level, but I truly didn't feel like spending any more time on farms where I was just getting nothing. Now that I understand that it is a 1 in 20 chance for each item, I would have been a bit more patient. Aren't you curious what legendaries I can get from the golden chest? I got another pacemaker, which is kind of dumb, but I did manage to get a shield, which is super awesome. It's also an armor shield, which tells me that I can actually go farm Splash Zone to get the shield from him. That's pretty cool. The third legendary I get is a new gun. This thing is not that crazy, honestly. I'm guessing in endgame it's just garbage, but for now, absolutely anything helps. It fires high-speed bullets that have a chance to spawn homing projectiles when they hit an enemy. This is also a great example of my current build. My gun damage isn't the best, I'll be perfectly honest. The shield ricochet damage is only really good early game, but it's a super cool skill. Still, if you played Athena in the pre-sequel, yeah, her Aspis damage is a billion times better than Amon's shield. Especially once you get the other skills that give it like shock and fire damage and you get tons of stacks. Man, it makes me want to play pre-sequel again. But one of my favorite skills that Amon has is whenever you shoot an enemy, it has a chance to spawn a cryo projectile that ricochets to another enemy. It's a super fun skill, and it gives him some crowd damage, which is super nice. I decided that it was just a waste of video for the both of us if I explained where every single vault key fragment piece location is. I mean, most players already know by now or have looked it up. I've just taken pictures of my map on another save so I know where they all are now. Before I actually got into the vault, I decided to open out some of my rewards. And, well, I just happened to get a legendary from one of them, which is pretty awesome. I think this is actually a drop from Horus that I was trying to farm earlier, which is even better. Anyways, this gun is awesome. Vladof weapons are definitely my favorite in this game. And the super cool effect of the Aeon Dream is when you swap to the double barrel mode, or maybe when it's firing normally, I don't remember if it does both, it shoots fire and cryo projectiles, which makes it really good, especially on flesh enemies. It's a super fun gun. You know, I'll be honest, even while editing this, I am extremely confused why I didn't clear out the vault. But looking at my notes now, it's actually because I wanted to use my gear for a little bit before I farmed for some new stuff, especially the new assault rifle I just got. The only problem is that I've been out of ammo, because I have like no SDU slots for it. On top of that, it's not going to be too long before I get another boss I can farm from the main story, thus why I'm doing the main mission. The biggest improvement to this run isn't even getting a new weapon. I mean, my damage was horrible, but the primary issue was survivability. More damage is just an added bonus. This shield I have is super cool. I've never used it before. Well, at least this specific legendary. Yes, I've used plenty of armor shields before. As a matter of fact, my favorite shield is armor, and we'll be getting to that one shortly. But the unique effect of this one is when the shield is depleted, it spawns like a little bot thingy that follows you around and deploys a shield. You saw it a bit earlier. It's actually a super neat effect. It's probably not that great later on, but for now it's incredibly helpful. With all that said, this entire part was pretty easy, especially because Xandra helps us out with all the enemies. This area also happens to host the next boss, the Oppressor. This is the mandatory flying boss of the game, and it's actually not that difficult, especially thanks to my new gun. Sure, some of his attacks, like his bombs, can hit like a truck, but thankfully I have plenty of survivability at this point, especially because of my action skill. I do really like the shield, it's just not that great for damage. Maybe I'm just a bit used to playing Athena in the pre-sequel. Either way, there's nothing too noteworthy about this fight. All I will say is that I decided that I'm not going to farm this boss. Well, I really don't want to have to farm a flying enemy. That sounds absolutely horrible. Plus, now that I know I can actually get armor shields, I decided to finally go back and farm for the one I wanted earlier. Thankfully, my luck is a bit better right now, and I managed to get a Fireworks. This is easily my favorite shield in the game, especially for how easy it is to get. Literally the first farmable boss. Whenever I start a new level 30 playthrough, this is what I farm for instantly, especially because it appears that the damage scales with your level, so it's always powerful. It's just the capacity you have to worry about. I'm not 100% sure like when the effect procs or if you have to be in a certain range of enemies, but when you kill an enemy, it spawns a bunch of homing missiles that go and kill other enemies, based on the shield element. In my case, I got cryo, which is really good. It also fires some micro missiles if a segment of your shield breaks. Long story short, this shield is insanely overpowered. I would say it's one of the best shields in the game, especially if your character builds like ordnance and splash damage and stuff like that. You can easily combo kills and it can just shred through all of the enemies. It's pretty stupid. You might have noticed a slight discrepancy in the amount of farms. Yeah, it took me a very long time to get his other drop, the jelly. This is the grenade I've been going for the entire time. I don't know exactly what the jelly does, but I do know that it's a longbow grenade that like hits multiple enemies. Maybe it spreads to other enemies and explodes. I'm not completely sure. I just know that I like it, and it's pretty good. But it's at this point I also want to mention how I'm going to be doing farming from now on. You see, I don't want to make this run just like farm the exact same boss over and over and use those drops. No. From now on, I won't be refarming bosses that I've already gotten gear from. For example, Splash Zone is now off limits because I got all of his gear. Splash Zone is a unique case because I couldn't get some of his drops early on, so there's that. But yeah, from now on, I won't be able to go back to him and use any of his gear again. If I happen to get one of the things he drops, I will be able to use it. I'm just not allowed to farm him again. There will be a few examples later on where I get gear that I've farmed before, but I will be allowed to use it because it's either a world drop or a reward of some sort. I think I even got a non-dedicated drop from another boss. I can't remember. I guess we'll see. Anyways, as you can see, I'm currently going through the first vault. The enemies here and in all of the vaults are extremely difficult, which is completely intended, but thankfully my gear is very powerful at this point, so it's not too bad. It is becoming very apparent that I will need a new gun though. This one is horrible. What's funny is that my shield and grenade are actually the ones carrying me for quite a while, but that just goes to show you how powerful the fireworks is. Again, absolutely my favorite shield in the game. You definitely should try this. I know most people use Watts for dinner, and it's a decent enough shield, especially if your character has skills that activate over shield, but fireworks can just work on anybody, which is super nice. The first vault boss, Inceptus, isn't extremely difficult. Even though some of his attacks hit like a truck, you can usually dodge them, and if not, I have all of my crazy survivability. The primary issue with this fight is actually just damage. I deal so little damage that it's going to take a long time to kill him. Cryo doesn't work great against shields, and that's where most of my power comes from. But thankfully, since pretty much every boss in this game constantly spawns minions, my fireworks always have something to proc off of, which gives me a massive chunk of extra damage. And considering how long this fight alone took, you can probably tell it's going to take quite a while to actually farm this guy for anything I want. I've gotten a whole bunch of junk that I don't want, but funnily enough, I managed to get another Queen's Rest. This time it has the proper sticky underbarrel, or secondary mode I guess, and because I didn't farm for this, I just got it as a world drop, I will be using this copy. This is a great upgrade because the other weapon I've been using, I think it's called like the Husky, it's a TDR shotgun. It's actually super cool. As you can see here, I've gotten quite a few of these. This specific one is cool because it has a Torg sticky magazine that's going to increase my damage by a ton. But pretty much this gun has an underbarrel that fires out another gun. I mean, that's why I love TDR weapons ever since Borderlands 3. But the gun that it shoots out is actually a rocket launcher. It uses like a massive Torg rocket, so the projectile is slow, but it does a ton of damage, which is pretty nice. Definitely not the best legendary in the game, but kind of fun to use early on. And a long time later, I finally got what I was looking for, an actual class mod, the Elementalist. This class mod actually adds way more bonuses than I first thought because of its passive. The stats on it are pretty garbage though because sniper damage, well, I don't have a sniper. I don't actually know if I've gotten a legendary sniper at all in this run. I can't remember. Skill damage, also pretty useless. So that's unfortunate, but still, it's better than nothing. After a whole bunch of enemies, the next boss is one of my least favorites, especially farming him. It absolutely sucks. But the Bio Bulkhead requires us to use one of the new mechanics, which is the grappling hook, or picking up and throwing items. We gotta hit him with these canisters to destroy his armor before we can actually damage him. Thankfully, my damage is really good because of all of my cryo damage. But again, this fight is just so boring and annoying to do every time. I've farmed this guy a whole lot before, and I will for this run, even though he has like one of the worst drops in the game. I can't remember his third drop, but the waterfall, I believe, which is the other grenade drop, is pretty decent. So as you can probably expect, I'll be here for a little bit. Also, since I'm not going to be doing that one mission line in this run, I kind of want to explain it. You see, later on in the Dominion City, there's a couple of missions you have to do to get a boss called the Biothresher, and as you can guess, it shares the same mechanic as this boss, where you have to dissolve its armor with those canisters. The Biothresher is one of the worst fights in this game, especially because, guess what? It's a thresher that likes to burrow underground. Thankfully, it doesn't regenerate its armor when it burrows, that'd be even worse, but you still have to shatter its armor 5 times. Overall, I hate that fight, and I hate that farm, but guess what? I had to do it because he has one drop that I like. Other side note, I have a feeling the Biothresher is one of the only bosses or drop sources that shares its items with another. It can drop the Bugbear, which is also shared by another boss. I actually can't remember offhand right now, but he drops that and the truck, which is the only reason I was farming him. I wanted to try out that sniper. Just a little rant there about the annoying farms I've been doing recently. On my way to do the main mission, I found this mess of enemies. I have a feeling this is a world event of some sort, because this many just meatheads, like this cannot be natural, by the way. You know the main issue with this fight? Well, the meathead has a special ability where they can like amplify and heal other enemies around them. You know the issue when there's like 10 of them? They're all healing and empowering each other. I could barely kill one at a time. I will admit, I died twice here. Was it worth it? Probably not, but I'm hoping it was at least decent XP, because this is just stupid how many enemies there are here. This is definitely not normal. Or maybe it is, I've just never seen anything like it before. But yeah, that's certainly new. After clearing out a bunch of enemies, I went back to farm the Bio Bulkhead. The first legendary I got in my first playthrough is the Sho Kunai. This legendary is absolute garbage. It does no damage. Literally the whole thing about it is it gives you movement speed, and it has 7 capacity for a throwing knife. I literally don't know what the purpose of this thing is. It would be neat if it dealt more damage the more knives you hit an enemy with or something, but I think it's garbage. I guess it is a cool reference to Toho though. At least that's my best guess. I would have liked the waterfall, but I was extremely happy with getting his other drop, the Budget Deity. TDR guns are very fun in this game, especially after they got a major buff to make them all super powerful. And the crazy thing is that they're actually going to carry me through most of this playthrough, especially this one. Of course, they're powerful at the cost of chewing through your ammo reserves. This gun is super cool because when you throw it, it throws 2 seeking projectiles. I'm guessing it does extra damage if you can shoot them like it says, but that's very hard to do before they hit an enemy. On top of that, once these seeking projectiles hit an enemy, it actually places a tracker on them so that your bullets home in on them, which is super neat. I definitely like this gun, but I'll mostly be using it as a throwing weapon, as TDRs are intended. The first legendary I got is called the Divided Focus. This is a pretty neat assault rifle. The projectiles bounce and pierce enemies. Now, it's not great for bossing, unless you throw it, which is what I mainly used it for, but the damage is a little bit decent against groups of enemies. Definitely not the best legendary I've ever found, though. Still, it's better than nothing. And my second drop was another rep kit, the Defibrillator. I messed up saying that so many times. Anyways, it's nice to have a new rep kit as my old one was a bit underleveled. Overall, there isn't too much else to say here. There's a massive mobbing section, but thankfully there are a ton of NPCs that help you out, so it's extremely easy. I say there are a lot of people that help you out until you get to the second level. This is one of my classic cases where I killed all the enemies but died right after I killed the last one. That'll happen quite a lot in this run, and honestly, most of the time it's because of my own guns. That's like a reoccurring theme in all of my playthroughs. I am literally more of a danger to myself than the enemies. The next major boss is Idolator's Soul. Just like the Bio Bulkhead I was talking about earlier, and the Bio Thresher that gives me PTSD, yeah, his fight is absolutely horrible. But to make things worse, you can't actually get the canisters to break his armor whenever you want. That's a luxury you get in the other fights. Overall, this fight isn't extremely difficult, it's usually just slow waiting through his invincibility phase. And yes, you heard that, Idolator's Soul and Callus are like the two most annoying bosses because of their invincibility phase. There's literally nothing you can do about it either, you kinda just have to wait the whole thing out. And with that being said, you can probably guess that I do not plan to farm him, especially considering how long this fight alone took. I know he drops like class mods and stuff like that. I don't know what his gun drops are though. I definitely don't think it's worth it either way. I decided to go back to farming one of the drill sites I had horrible luck with earlier, and I got a new grenade. This grenade definitely isn't the best, but it's super fun to use because it just keeps homing in and hitting the enemy constantly. It's just so stupid that it's funny. And that replaces the Sho Kunai, which are completely worthless. After that drop, I decide to make my way to another drill site. This one happens to be my favorite because it has some of the best drops in the game. I say it has the best drops, yet I get a world drop legendary enhancement. That would be cool if it wasn't freaking Hyperion. None of my weapons have Hyperion parts on them, by the way. This is one of the most worthless augments I think I've ever found. But by getting that legendary enhancement, I know I said augment earlier, that actually gave me the achievement for having a legendary item in every single slot. I didn't get that before because I've only gotten a few legendary enhancements and they've all been garbage. I've literally never gotten Jacobs, Vladoff, or even Torg, any of the ones I actually want. A little bit later, I finally got one of the items I was actually looking for, the War Paint. This is easily the best rep kit in the game. It has guaranteed fire rate and movement speed, and if you get the right parts on it, you can also get Enrage. So this thing can make you deal crazy damage. The downside is that it has a super long cooldown. However, the cooldown is reduced by a couple of seconds every time you get hit. You can tell by the farm counter just how long this has taken, but all of that time, likely hours, is absolutely worth it at this point. I got one of my favorite weapons in this game, the Hellwalker. This thing is incredibly powerful. Actually, I think it's like one of the best guns in the game, on all characters. So you can probably guess, I'm extremely happy to have finally gotten this drop. That's literally what I've been looking for this entire time. Getting the Hellwalker is a massive power spike. I can finally get back to the main mission and deal lots of damage now. Even though this isn't the best example because my reload speed isn't really good, this thing still absolutely shreds enemies. Now, these bosses usually are fire element, at least I think so, but they aren't here, and that's another reason why it's doing so much damage. Oh, and let's not forget the fact it's a Jacobs shotgun, so critical hits ricochet to deal even more damage. Yeah, this gun just gets better the more you think about it. Since I was in the area, the world event in the Terminus range actually popped up, so I decided to do it. The Goradello is probably my favorite of all the world events. It's super easy, and it's pretty much like a Circle of Slaughter from any of the other games, which is extremely fun. On top of that, it's got some really good music in it. Actually, I think it only plays at the very beginning, but still, it's a nice little theme. But like I said, it's literally just a Circle of Slaughter from any of the other games, so you just gotta kill a whole bunch of enemies in a certain amount of time. Okay, well, the time aspect is different from the other games, but still. Right after that, I managed to defeat another Rift champion, and one of them just happened to drop the Noisy Cricket. This is a fun little pistol, and an awesome reference. Its damage isn't crazy good, but I got a TDR part on it, so when I reload it, which you actually reload every single shot, it throws the weapon and that spawns into a bunch of Merv grenades, which is really good. On top of that, I happened to find essentially a God roll SMG. That's like one of the best combinations you can get right there. Daedalus shotgun, Torg sticky projectiles, and Jacobs ricochet. I actually have a purple assault rifle just like that on my Harlow, and combined with all of her skills, I can literally hit every single enemy at the same time and deal insane amounts of damage with it. That's why I saved it, even though it's a level 30. I might use it on a new character or something. I also happened to get a edging lead balloon. Man, the Torg prefixes and names are so cursed in this game. I love it, but I hate it at the same time. So that's a new lead balloon I could always use. It also has a Jacob's part on it, which is pretty neat. And this thing is going to be really good considering the boss I'm farming. It's also incendiary, which makes it even better for my current situation. So very well timed drop overall. A while later, I finally got another legendary, but not just one, two in the same drop, which is always very exciting. I got a new shield, and I decided to actually use it because the fireworks is getting a little bit old at this point. I need some serious shielding at this point. I also got the bugbear. I think this is still in the patch before they updated it, so the bugbear isn't great. I don't know if it's good after they buffed it, but yeah, I won't be using it that much. The next story boss is the Sky Spanner Cratch. This boss isn't actually that difficult. You can see how I'm melting him with the Hellwalker here. However, you can kind of see the problem. All of his minions deal a ridiculous amount of damage, and then his main attacks. Because he's technically an airstrike Cratch, which spawn all of these little homing projectiles. I mean, they're super slow, sure, but they're incredibly deadly. I actually don't know what this boss drops, but I don't think there's anything really good. I mean, I've never farmed him before. Maybe I should check that sometime. The next thing I'm farming is one of the Order bunkers, when I just happened to get the Hot Slugger. This is easily one of my new favorite weapons. It's kind of like the Hellwalker, where it has one shot per reload, but it's got a unique reload animation, and it deals more damage every time you kill an enemy, stacking up to 3 times, meaning this thing can do insane damage when you're dealing with waves of enemies. So that was an amazing find. And of course, it's Jacob's, so you got the critical ricochet, which can make it even more devastating, even against bosses. After making my way through a few more main story missions, I decided to go clear out the vault in the top right area. Besides the usual class mods that all of the vault monsters drop, this one has some of the best equipment you can get in the game. The main thing that sucks about this fight is, well, my damage. As good as this Hot Slugger gun is, it's only really good for dealing with crowds of enemies. It's not that great when there's not much to kill. I mean, sure, this guy has minions, but I constantly have to focus the minions, and it's very hard to hit them with this projectile. All I know is that this is going to be an incredibly annoying farm, but the gear I'm hoping to get will absolutely be worth it, if they drop. I actually managed to get a drop on the first kill. Unfortunately, this is not what I wanted. This is probably the worst out of all of his drops. I mean, this ordnance isn't that great. It's not horrible, especially for this fight, since he is all shields, but still, that's not what I'm looking for. After getting 3 class mods I couldn't use, and that were garbage anyways, I finally got what I was looking for here. The Watts for Dinner. This is one of the best shields in the game, and I would say probably the best out of all the shields actually. Whenever you have overshield, you actually get 25% shock damage for free, which is pretty insane. It also drops overshield boosters that, give you an overshield whenever you damage an enemy. So yeah, this thing is pretty broken, especially if you have a character that has an overshield skill, which makes it easier to proc. That made the farm a whole lot easier. And soon enough, I managed to get the Chaosin, which was the other drop I'm looking for. This is a super powerful Vladoff SMG that can stack tons of sticky explosives to deal, well, a ridiculous amount of damage whenever you detonate it. I'll still mainly be using the Hellwalker and Hot Slugger, but the Chaosin is better for bossing. Overall, this combination of new gear makes the rest of the areas extremely easy. Right before the next boss, one of my favorite parts of this game is all the references, especially to Borderlands the pre-sequel. It's literally a jump pad from Borderlands the pre-sequel. It even uses the same sound effect, which is pretty awesome. Anyways, the next boss fight is Vile Lictor. He's only really difficult if you don't deal enough damage. Well, I guess all bosses are, but he's like particularly annoying. and in my case, I definitely deal nowhere near enough damage, so I'm actually gonna have to deal with all of his different phases, which this is definitely the first time I've had to deal with them because I can usually just shred him, so I'm not used to this. But thankfully, to expose his critical spot, you have to destroy a bunch of his limbs, which are all separate enemies. You can probably guess what I'm going for here. The Hot Slugger, so I can deal tons of extra damage with the shock bonus from my shield. There we go, that's the melt that I was looking for. I sometimes forget that he does have this one phase. Well, it's more like an attack that he has in his second phase, I guess, where you have to get out of the middle platform onto a floating platform so you don't die. It's very annoying, just like the invincibility phases of Soul and Callus. I guess it kind of makes sense. They're like 3 of the big bosses before you fight the final boss. Still, I remember hearing something about they wouldn't be doing invincibility phases in this game so that you don't waste tons of time. But yeah, there are plenty of invincibility phases. They're just way shorter and generally less annoying than Borderlands 3. I did manage to get a legendary from farming. I don't actually remember if it was a drop or if it was a reward or from the chest. I have a feeling it was the chest. I haven't actually used the Hellfire in this game before, but let me tell you, it is incredibly powerful, especially with Amon's skills. I actually have 5 points in a skill that increases my fire rate whenever I ignite an enemy, making this thing super powerful. It can stack damage really quick. This one also happened to roll with an underbarrel gas trap. It's an interesting thing that you can just shoot on the ground. It's like a corrosive, hazard on the floor. It's actually pretty decent against armored enemies. A little bit later, I managed to get a world drop roach. Also, like I said earlier, that prefix is absolutely cursed. Lubed roach is a pair of words I never thought I would ever say. That's actually kind of stupid funny. The roach is not that great, and it's only really effective against living targets, like humans and animals, but still a very cool find. The next drop I managed to farm is called the Chuck. Now, I've used this before, and I feel like it was really bad. I mean, it probably was before they buffed TDR a whole bunch. This gun is an absolute beast of a weapon now. Like, I'm talking probably one of the best weapons in the game, especially with some Rafa build ideas I have. He actually has a class mod that throws like an extra grenade or an extra TDR weapon. You can probably guess why I want to try this on Rafa. I feel like it's going to be stupidly OP. Because, I mean, look at what it's doing right now. I don't think I have any like good ordnance or grenade splash damage build, anything like that. This gun is just stupid, especially because it homes in on enemies. The only downside to it is the fact it chews through ammo like crazy. But I would say it's absolutely worth it for the damage this thing can put out. I'm definitely gonna have to try this gun at level 50. I think it can be really good. Like I said at the beginning, this is one of my favorite parts about doing these runs because I discover so many new weapons and pieces of gear that I normally wouldn't use. Sure, a lot of them do suck, but then you have hidden gems like this. As you can probably tell, the Chuck absolutely carried me for a very long time. This gun is ridiculous and I love it. I've been clearing through absolutely tons of enemies to make my way to the next story boss and obviously farm. As you can see, the Chuck makes very quick work of this boss. This gun is so stupid the more I use it. The damage is definitely going to drop off as I level up more and more, but watching this again really makes you want to go farm one at level 50 and try out that Rafa build. Thankfully, this also means that the farm is going to be relatively easy, which is good. Another thing I never really noticed until I watched the footage back is how many farms this took. 25 just to get Katagawa's revenge. This gun is pretty garbage, I have to admit. But I like it because it's literally the Storm from Borderlands 2, and I think it's in Borderlands 3. I don't remember. The damage isn't insane, but the Watts for Dinner shield does kind of stack with all of the little projectiles it creates, so maybe there's something there, but definitely not a good legendary. A little bit later, the next thing I got is the Fuse. I've never actually used this thing before, but it's an artillery grenade So very much like a bouncing Betty in Borderlands 2, it fires projectiles all around it, it fires some sort of other grenades, and the bullets can ricochet, which is pretty neat. It's also one of the talking pieces of gear, which is interesting. The lines are absolutely cursed. On top of that, I'm pretty sure it's Tina's voice actor that voices this grenade. That's my best bet. For the next legendary item I got, it's the faulty detonator. Now, I will say, this is probably one of the worst legendaries in the game. I don't like it at all. Apparently, it spawns a bunch of combo orbs. That's a TDR thing that you can shoot to deal even more damage, but I've never liked that gimmick at all. And considering the damage is pretty horrible too, yeah, I definitely don't like it. I don't think it is the absolute worst in the game, but it's pretty close. Trust me, I found the worst item in this game. We'll get to that very soon. And I believe from now on, this is after the update they did, you know, the big update where they changed everything, nerfed the crit knife. As you can see, the Rift champions, these little events, have like an effect on your screen. I don't know what the right term is, different shading or coloring. You get my point though. It's really weird, but also pretty cool. The single best part about this update is how they actually put all of these events on your map. So now you can actually know like where these Rift champions are happening around the world, which is super nice. Cause now when I'm just clearing out an area, I can see if there's one nearby and go do that real quick. During my next farm, I got this. Prince Harming. I can definitively say this is the worst legendary in the game. Like, easily. Sure, it says it does good DPS, but have you seen the legendary effect? It damages you at the same time. Like, what kind of weapon is that? It says it gives you, in theory, you're supposed to get an overshield proportional to the amount of damage it deals to you, but like, I never noticed that at all. I feel like this gun is either bugged or just really that bad. It's pretty much like using the Orphan Maker in Borderlands 2. Actually, that's exactly what it is. It's literally a gun that deals damage back to you at the same time. Yeah, this thing sucks. I don't know why I tried to use it for so long, but let's just say it got me killed more than anything else. I mean, sure, I still haven't used every single legendary in the game, but I can easily say this is the worst one. Unless you guys have found something somehow worse than the Prince Harming, please tell me in the comments so I can check it out. But yeah, this is a weapon, that's for sure. I also decided to respec my skill tree because I wasn't super happy with how my build was performing. There aren't a lot of Amon skills that I really like. I actually think he has some of the worst skills in the game. At the same time though, that skill I put 5 points into at the bottom middle tree, that one gives you some shield and ammo back into your gun whenever you apply a status effect. It's actually super powerful, so I like that one. I also like the cryo ricochet one, like I said earlier, and the fire rate when you deal fire damage. That's really good too. There's also a skill that gives you more ricochet damage, and burning duration, which is very nice. So he has some nice ones, but nowhere near as powerful as like Vex, Rafa, or definitely not Harlow. Thankfully, it wasn't long before I got an actually usable drop, the Phantom Flame. This is actually a super fun little pistol that automatically fires when you're zoomed in and homes in on the enemies. This is super unique, especially for a Jacobs pistol, and I really like this gun. It combos very well with the skills that I was just talking about earlier. One thing I forgot can happen, very rarely you can actually find legendaries in the vending machines. This is super cool. I managed to get a way better hot slugger. Now normally I wouldn't reuse a legendary like this, but since I didn't farm an enemy for it again, I decided why not? I mean, this has been one of my favorite weapons of the playthrough so far, so I really want to keep using it. Right after that, I was checking all of my rewards when I got this weapon. I've never seen this before, but I guess it's interesting enough. I might as well try it. Well, that's neat. But guess what? I got another one. Yeah, from another reward. Alright, I'm 99% sure that's because this was recorded in October when they were doing their Halloween event, and I feel like this is the Halloween gun. Cause I know the grenade is like Scully or something like that. So yeah, that's probably why I got 2 of them. Now, I don't know if this gun is just garbage. It's definitely not good, but I'm gonna blame it either way because I actually died during this fight. I will say though, Rock and Roller is one of my least favorite enemies. Vile enemies are always incredibly annoying to deal with. And this boss is super difficult because he literally just runs at you and nothing else. It's getting me killed more often because, well, I like to use TUR guns, so the explosion usually hits me when he runs at me. You see the problem here. But after that very rare death, I got a new rep kit. This is pretty awesome, especially because it has the Enrage buff, so I can deal a whole lot more damage. And, you know, more healing is always useful. Another vending machine legendary here. I decided to pick it up because it's a different class mod, and more importantly, a much higher level one. This class mod is super good because it gives me a couple other skills, which on one hand, the skill buffs are very nice, but on the other, the stats of this thing absolutely suck. Also, another murmur. Yeah, that's definitely from the Halloween event. I actually thought at first this was glitched, but after a while I realized, oh, event item. As for the class mod, I don't care too much about the Forge skill damage. That is the hold down F skill. It's not really that good. I mostly got it because I wanted to try something different, and the reload speed is going to be really good. My next stop is naturally the 3rd vault monster. Besides getting my 3rd boost pack upgrade, which is definitely the best one because it reduces cost by half, I'm also hoping to get some new gear. A lot of my stuff is outdated at this point. I would say this is the most difficult out of all of the vault monsters in this game. Even though a lot of his attacks are telegraphed and super easy to dodge, like most of his ground ones and the lightning attacks, it's those rocks that he throws. Those are a massive threat. Besides the fact they usually like 2-shot you, they're almost impossible to dodge. Especially once he starts doing the spinning rock attack where they go all around the arena. It's so hard to dodge them. Thankfully, there are plenty of enemies to get second wins from. But, like the very beginning of this video, they can be annoying when they just group up on you and constantly damage your shield. Not to mention the fact that the rocks spin around him and block your projectiles half the time. Still, very unique and cool enemy. The first legendary I managed to get is the Adrenaline Pump. Another legendary rep kit is cool and all, but it's nowhere near as good as the current one I have. More importantly, the other legendary I got is the Anarchy. This was introduced in Borderlands 3, and it's a super fun weapon. There's just a tiny issue I didn't actually expect with this gun. Well, besides not having enough shotgun ammo in reserve, one of my skills makes this gun completely worthless, especially in boss fights like this. You see, to stack Anarchy, which gives you more damage but less accuracy, you need to either kill enemies or reload the gun on an empty magazine. It's exactly like Gage's skill in Borderlands 2. It's the one where when I apply a status effect, I get ammo back into the gun. I mean, you literally look at the ammo counter there and you see the whole issue. Yeah, it doesn't work with skills like that. It's actually quite the opposite. It's screwing me over because I have that skill. This gun would be really nice to use otherwise. It's just a real shame. Another chest legendary, which actually this is pretty crazy, the Timekeeper's new shield. This is literally the Rough Rider from Borderlands 2 and 3. Besides extra health, it also has health regeneration, which stacks very well with Amon's health regeneration skill. That's pretty cool. The only downside I can think of is my health is going to be damaged a lot, so I lose some gun damage from the other skill I have. Either way, it's a trade-off, and I've never used the shield in this game yet, so I wanted to try it. Since the vault is right next to this farm, I decided to do it, especially because it has a couple of good drops that I want. The spinning blade, well, it's one of my favorite references, of course, to Draven in League of Legends, but it's not that great of a legendary. It's a fun little mini game, but yeah, the damage just isn't there. Here's the main gun I was here for, the Wombo Combo. This is easily one of my favorite legendaries, and it can output an incredible amount of damage, especially if you have the augment that gives you like a 30% chance to fire an extra bullet on flat off guns. That can make the wombo combo shred. For some reason I picked up the potato thrower instead, but I don't know what you have to do to make this thing good. I swear, this thing never performs for me. It's absolute garbage in my opinion. As you can see by the last two, as you can see by the difference in deaths, I actually died to Callus twice already. This is bizarre. I've never really died to this fight. I actually thought it was quite easy before, but I guess my build isn't crazy good. The primary issue is the fact I don't have a proper shield. I mean, sure, I have the Rough Rider, which gives health and health regeneration, but that rarely replaces an actual energy or armor shield. Because, as you can probably see, if I get hit by even one attack, that's usually health gate, which is pretty bad, so I have to be very careful in this fight. It's pretty much just her armor phase that is the problem as well, because once she goes into her health phase, the wombo combo absolutely shreds her. Then of course, there's her invincibility phase. You just have to clear out a bunch of enemies that spawn, and you can't touch all the red terrain or else you get super slowed. It's not as bad as Idolator Soul, but still, I'd rather these long phases where you can't do anything, not exist. That would make farming these bosses so much easier. The first drop I got is the Slippy. This is a pretty funny grenade. It literally uses the model of a fish, which is awesome, and it deals melee damage every time it hits an enemy. It's a Merv grenade, so it explodes into like 2 and then 3. Yeah, overall a very powerful grenade, especially if you have really good melee damage, which technically I do because of my specialization points. So that was an amazing find, and it's gonna work, and it'll come in handy even more later on. And of course, the Queen's Rest. This is one of the legendaries that I was using earlier, but those were all like world drop and other sources. So now this is a properly farmed version of it. We already know how good this thing is. I went back near the bottom of the map to go farm one of the things I finally remembered about. There's actually a mine relatively close to the starting area, but you can't unlock it until you do the missions in the top right. The first thing I got is the Dark Beast. This is a super neat Daedalus SMG, and the bullets pierce enemies and have a chance to explode, which is pretty neat. I thought this thing was garbage at first, but it's really good against armored targets, which is going to be important relatively soon. The other legendary I got was the Buoy, and I have to say, this is also on the list of worst legendaries in the game. I honestly don't know what it does. It seems like you just throw it up into the air, but like, are you supposed to wait for enemies to run into it? That's not practical 99% of the time. Yeah, the damage isn't really great either. Maybe I should read how it's supposed to actually work, but nah, I like the Slippy a bit more. That grenade is so much more fun. Since I have better gear, I decided to continue with the main story, and this is easily my favorite part of the entire game. It starts with this massive combat section while you're on a freaking space elevator on your way to the moon, or Elpis in orbit. And if this isn't awesome to you, well, I don't know what is. But what's even better than a space elevator? Well, space itself. Literally my favorite map in the game. Probably because it is Elpis, and I love Borderlands the pre-sequel so much. Naturally, it has a lot of pre-sequel references here as well, and I love all of them. Not to mention the freaking flying threshers here. Yeah, that's insane. The threshers have learned to fly. That is both beautiful and horrifying at the same time. If you guys want to hear all my other thoughts on this map, then you should watch my other Borderlands 4 video. I went into way more detail on why I love it and how it should have been. Pretty much, I wish it was more like the pre-sequel, had a bunch of pre-sequel mechanics and stuff like that, but yeah, that's probably a lot to ask for one tiny level. At the end of this entire level, we get to fight Callus. Again. Yeah, apparently she wasn't dead the first time. Go figure. Anyways, this is where the combination of the Dark Beast with its incredible corrosive damage and the Wombo combo with its incredible fire damage come in handy, because these make the fight relatively easy. I do have to say though, I really like this version of her fight because I think the invincibility phase is actually super unique. Like, you can't jump or you get the same super slow. You're pretty limited in your movement, which does kind of suck for this game, but I think it's a neat mechanic for one tiny fight. After that, I decided to make my way to the Dominion City, which is the final few levels. This area has a ton of stuff to do, and 2 farms you can go for. I only went for the mine because it's easier to get to. If I want to go to the bunker, I have to do a bunch of side missions, which I really don't feel like doing. I managed to get a world drop kaleidoscope while I was here, and I have to say, I forgot about this thing. I mean, of course I forgot, because it's like one of the worst guns in the game. You see how terrible the DPS is? I legitimately don't know what this thing is supposed to do. Unless I'm truly missing something, I have a feeling this weapon is just this horrible. It does no damage. Well, I looked it up, and yeah, the legendary effect is literally just shoots slow orbs that explode on impact. Yeah, this thing is garbage. Still not the worst though. The Prince Harming is going to keep that spot. In the next farm, I managed to get myself the bod. Now, I've seen a lot of people using this gun. I'm pretty sure it's like a big meta item. I feel like that's because it counts as all weapon types at the same time, so you can probably get a bunch of bonuses. Also, I have no clue when I got that new enhancement. Go figure though, both of the enhancements I got are absolutely worthless. I'll say it again, I've never gotten a good legendary enhancement. I have a feeling I won't for a long time. Anyways, I've never really seen the appeal of the bod. It just like doesn't seem to do much damage when you can use like so many other better weapons instead. But to each their own, I guess. The real good drop I got was the kill spring. A new rep kit is pretty awesome. More importantly, it can provide me a ton of healing just by killing enemies. So this is probably one of the best rep kits in the game, besides the war paint. Before I finish up the game though, there is one farm I want to go do that I forgot existed. Okay, well I knew of it, I just didn't remember where it was. I got the noisy cricket, which is pretty decent. More importantly, I got what is probably my favorite grenade, the swarm. Naturally, I love homing grenades, and I love Merv grenades. This is an awesome combination of the two, and it's very powerful. So that's a great find, and I think I'm finally ready to complete the game. And I hate to admit this, but I have failed this first jump in this massive section several times before. I don't know what it is about that first jump, there's just so little room to get it right for me, for some reason. The final level is absolutely filled to the brim with enemies. Naturally, they're all extremely difficult, including the elite order forces, Seneschal or something like that, and then a ton of vile enemies on top of that. It's a pretty difficult time all around. But even this underleveled wombo combo is absolutely carrying me with its crazy damage. I seriously have to get one of these at level 50. I think it can carry super hard. We also get to see one of the rarest enemies in the game. These are called menacers. They're these giant drone thingies that always face you. They have a little orb, that's their critical spot in the back, but it's incredibly hard to hit because, they always face you. I don't even know what these things' attacks are. All I know is that they deal an unholy amount of damage and one-shot you half the time. I mean, it's probably half that and half the fact I don't have a real shield right now, but I think their design is super cool. I would normally say this is the final boss of the game, but Borderlands 4 is super interesting because there's technically 3 different final bosses. They all have their own loot pools. There's the Timekeeper, first off, then the Primordial Guardian Timekeeper, and finally RJ. Actually, I'm pretty sure RJ is still bugged. He doesn't drop anything. I think so. At least they haven't changed that as of the time of recording this. The primary issue with this fight is the same issue I've been having this entire time. It's just lack of damage. And to make matters worse, I actually forgot to restock ammo right before this fight, so I'm gonna have to scrounge around for ammo near the end. Since I lack decent damage and a good shield, this fight is actually pretty difficult because most of his attacks can one-shot me. Technically 2-shot because of a health gate, but you get the point. Getting hit by anything is a major problem. I have to be super careful in this fight. But overall, these bosses aren't extremely difficult. This isn't the hardest Borderlands I've ever played. So what about this run? Well, I definitely had a lot of fun playing it. mostly. It took 27 hours to complete this run, and I swear 20 of those were just farming, which is quite painful. I think 5% drop rate is way too low. I really wish they would increase it to 10, especially because of all the different drops from each source. That's like my major problem at this point. One of the other major issues with the legendaries in this game is actually enhancements. I have only gotten like 7 or 8 at this point, and they've all been absolute garbage. None have been any good manufacturers, none have had any good stats. I seriously wish there was a better source of enhancements, but no, they are a legit world drop chance, which the chances have to be, I don't know, in the decimals somewhere. It's incredibly low. So I really wish there was a better way to either get enhancements or, hear me out here, craft your own with stats that you like. Imagine a neat crafting system like that, where you could take multiple enhancements that you already have and make them into a legendary one. I think that'd be super cool. Obviously for a super high like cash and iridium price to balance it out. I'm talking like extremely high. You know, $100 million and I don't know, 10,000 iridium or something like that. Make it a super endgame thing for players who really need the gear. I know there's already the firmware machine, and I absolutely love that because it makes getting the correct, well, firmware on your gear so much easier than before. But yeah, it's still extremely painful farming just for hours to get absolutely nothing from a boss. And then sometimes you'll get like 2 legendaries at the same time. As a matter of fact, one of the nights I was recording this voiceover, I was playing a little bit of Borderlands 4, and I was fighting one of the bosses that had the big encore, or whatever that is, where you can pay iridium to respawn them and their drops are better. I think I got like 4 or 5 legendary drops at once. That is the most I've seen in a single drop in this game, which is insane. You can probably guess, I mean, all of them were worthless. I didn't want any of them, but still, at least I was getting legendaries. But the most interesting thing about Borderlands 4, honestly, isn't the legendaries. Because of the whole parts system in this game, and licensed parts, a lot of legendaries are actually worthless. There's a way higher chance for you to get a crazy broken purple item over a good legendary, which is stupid when I really say it, but I like it at the same time because you can get some really cool combinations. A lot of the combinations I have in mind are still like theory crafting because I've never seen them drop in the world, but I have found some awesome stuff like a Jacob sniper with a Daedalus part, more specifically the Daedalus shotgun ammo. I hope you guys are thinking exactly what I am. That's like a proto skull masher, which is absolutely awesome. And I assume the same thing can happen for pistols and stuff like that. Because one of my favorite weapons, it's a Daedalus assault rifle. I think I was saying this already, but you know, Jacob's ricochet, Torque sticky bullets, it's stupid. Now I'm just curious like what that combination would do with other guns. I want to see the damage per second difference in them. Amon, yeah, he's definitely my least favorite. I'd have to try out his other skill trees, but I'm not very interested because, again, he has a large focus on melee, and I'd have to look at the skills to kind of rank them. Overall, Harlow is still my favorite Vault Hunter. She is insanely fun to play. And honestly, at this point, Vex is probably my second favorite. I used to like Rafa a lot, but after playing Vex and Harlow, he's fun and has some crazy like infinite damage builds, but not really my style anymore. Vex is super satisfying because I love her critical bleed skill, where if you get a critical hit, there's a chance to apply a kinetic status effect, which is like a bleed effect. It's super powerful and can do some crazy damage. But more than anything, it's actually just like satisfying to see that number being applied. I have a feeling that's the same reason I find Harlow so much fun, because of my specific build. She is just so stupidly overpowered, it's insane. On top of that, I don't even have like perfect gear on her yet. That's what I've been working on recently. I don't even have a legendary class mod for her, which is crazy. Cause, by the way, I'm voicing this part on October 30th, and guess what? They finally fixed her reactor class mod drop. Like, I swear, I could never get it for some reason, even though I know its drop source. It's the first vault monster. Guess what? It was glitched the entire time. I had a feeling because I could never get it, I've only found it as a world drop, but seriously? It's been glitched for the entire time this game's been out, and it's been almost 2 months. That's ridiculous. But hopefully now I can get a decent class mod. That's still going to be tough because the one I have is insanely good. It has some really good skills, which combo well with my green tree, and it has all damage dealt, but it could certainly be better. And obviously legendary. I just have a purple one. Even though we've dealt with the Timekeeper, there is one last boss. Like I said earlier, RJ. Even though his fight isn't anything crazy, I certainly think the phase dimension is a super unique setting. I love how it looks. And more important than that, RJ's fight theme is so good. I literally had to turn up the music in-game for this part because of how much I love his theme. Unfortunately, like I also said earlier, he doesn't seem to have any legendary drops. I've only killed him like 3 times in total, but I haven't gotten any legendary drops. I mean, maybe I should test killing him a bunch of times to see if he does, but again, I am pretty sure he's glitched or something like that. Maybe he really does have no drops, which wouldn't make much sense, but okay. Anyways, thank you all for watching. I truly appreciate it, and I hope you enjoyed the video. As always, a special thank you to my channel members. You guys are awesome, and this is going to be Enzo from LookIntoGaming, signing out.